Hello, my Build 5000 Nation. How is everyone doing today? Oh, we're back. Whew. Feels like it's been a minute. It's been a busy week. Yeah, it's one of them all-day coffee drinkers. Oh. All right. So, we're back. We are starting this one off with top fives, and this one is titled, hold on one moment. 5 Scariest Most Dangerous Prisoner. 5 Scariest Most Dangerous Prison Inmates Alive. I can't talk today. Yay, that's going to make for interesting. See, I don't even know the word. It's there somewhere. Time. It's going to make for an interesting time. Video. That one's better. Oh, God. Yep. I just need to go home, go back to sleep. Good night. Alright. So, you know what time it is. It's time to turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cut up with someone special. Dude, I'm butchering my own intro. Hold on. Let's rewind that. So, you know what time it is. It's time to put on something comfy, cut up with someone's... God bless it. I can't do it today. I'm done. One more time. You all know what time it is. It's time to turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cut up with someone special, and let's get spooky. Holy, I did it! Ooh. The day is turning around. Oh, all right. Let's start. Yeah.
The late Thomas Silverstein and Charles Bronson have frequently been cited as being the scariest prison inmates, both having committed numerous crimes while incarcerated. But here we'll look at 5 criminals who have committed such heinous crimes and shown so little remorse for their acts that they will spend the rest of their lives in prison, and truly are some of the scariest and most dangerous prison inmates alive today. Our thoughts and sympathies go out to all of the families affected by the deeds of these violent and dangerous people. Now, before we begin, we'd like to say a big thank you to this video sponsor, MrBallen TV. If you've tuned into
MrBallen TV. I don't think I've ever watched MrBallen TV. Good Lord. Right there. I think that's where we should start. I was close. I was like a millisecond off.
Since its launch in the UK in 1983, only 3 women have ever been sentenced to serve whole life orders. That is, to remain in prison until they die. Those women are Myra Hindley, Rose West, and Joanna Dennehy. Hindley, though now dead, and West are both internationally renowned. Hindley for her role in the depraved Moors murders, and West for killings that took place in her home, the infamous 25 Cromwell Street. Joanna Dennehy is less known outside Britain, and though her victims are fewer, the nature of her crimes, her startling lack of remorse, and the behaviour she has exhibited, even since her incarceration, mark her out as a highly dangerous individual. During a 10-day period in March to April 2013, Dennehy, 30 years old at the time, and a mother of 2 daughters, callously murdered 3 men.
No, can I block that out? No, now it just looks like I'm grabbing her, but okay, I'm done. Yeah. Oh God, I don't need to be doing videos today. There's something wrong. Oh, sweet baby, why? I never understood the premise of taking a picture with your boobies out. I mean, I have no problems with women taking pictures with the boobies out. I just don't see the premise of it. I'm gonna get smacked by my wife so hard. Oh God, this is horrible. And I'm still paused on her boobs. Let's.
Her first victim was 31-year-old Lucas.
He looked at her boobs.
A Polish national, Dennehy, had only met.
He said they wasn't big enough. He looked at her and said, maybe I know more than a mouthful's of waste, but I have a big mouth. I'm sorry. Oh, God.
Before she killed him.
I'm not getting montaged on this.
Of flirtatious text messages. Lucas visited her home in Petersburg, only for Dennehy to stab him in the heart upon his arrival. She allegedly stored his body in a bin, later showing it to a teenage girl who lived nearby, before disposing of the corpse. Dennehy's next victim was her housemate, John Chapman, aged 56. After stabbing him numerous times, she called her friend and accomplice Gary Stretch, who arrived with his friend Leslie Layton. The duo then helped her move the body out of the bedstead she shared with Chapman. Lastly, Dennehy killed her 48-year-old landlord Kevin Lee. Thought to have been instigated by an argument over unpaid rent, she stabbed him in the chest. Dennehy then dressed Lee, whom she had also a sexual relationship with, in a black sequin dress, and dumped his body in a ditch near the Cambridgeshire fence, a process she had already used with her previous victims. On the 2nd of April 2013, Dennehy drove 140 miles to Hereford with Stretch and Layton, where Dennehy stabbed 2 men within a 10-minute period, though luckily both men survived. Dennehy was later arrested in Hereford, where her apparent absence of concern, along with her brazen flirtatious.
And it says she has 2 kids, right? So that would be like one of her kids, right? Crazy. Now, them babies are going to have a horrible time growing up, especially if they're like, man, I know who your mama is. Your mama would sleep with people, stab them, put them in a dress, and dump their bodies in a ditch. We can't be friends. That child would never be invited to a sleepover. Can't say I blame him, but, you know, that's messed up.
Towards an officer is caught on camera at the police station.
Joanne, I've seen it, Joanne, you didn't have to. Yes. I don't know that. Thanks. You're decent for one. Amazing. That's good. Thanks for that. For so good. Real sexy. I've had a really hectic week.
Dennehy pled guilty during her trial and claimed to have no regret over the death of her 3 victims, though she admitted to feeling some remorse over the 2 counts of attempted murder she had been charged with.
Did one of them fight back? Because she looks like she's got a bruise on her ear. That one over there. And either starting to get a black eye or a black eye starting to fade or someone hit her. She looks like she's been in a little bit of a tussle. What is that? She's probably getting the dress out. Dude's like, what are you doing? And then she pulled out the knife and he was like, no. And she looks like a nice person, though. That's the creepy thing about it. Like, I don't know. I don't understand people.
This conflicts with her earlier confession to a psychiatrist, to whom she had admitted that she found murder moreish. and with her behaviour in court, Dennehy laughed in the dock as the judge branded her a cruel, calculated, selfish, and manipulative serial killer. She was sentenced to spend life in prison with no chance for parole in February 2014. This is the first instance of a judge sentencing a criminal to a whole life order, as this decree is usually decided by the Home Secretary. Initially, Dennehy was sent to HMP Bronzefield in Surrey, where plans she had made to escape were discovered in her cell. She had intended to murder a guard and use the severed finger of another in order to bypass a biometric security system. This led Dennehy to be held in solitary confinement for 2 years, before being transferred to HMP Low Newton in 2008. Upon arrival, Dennehy made threats against the life of fellow Low Newton inmate Rose West. These were taken seriously, and West was hastily transferred to HMP Newhall in Yorkshire. Dennehy has bragged about her crimes whilst in prison, has threatened and planned to hurt others, and has committed acts to self-harm as well, all of which would seem to justify the severity of the sentence she has been given.
What? Did she be crazy, bro? Oh my god. Is she really planned to just kill a guard, take a finger off of him, and just walk out the door? Oh, sweet baby Jesus. That's great. That's some movie stuff right there. Like,
Ramzi Youssef, imprisoned in the maximum security facility, 80.
Now he looks shady as all get out. I mean, look at that face. That's a shady face. Look at them eyes. They're wide open, but they look dead.
Ex-Florence, Ramzi Youssef has carried out and planned some of the most ambitious terrorist attacks to be uncovered. He is also the nephew of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the suspected main strategist behind the 2001 attack on the World Trade Center. Chillingly, Youssef orchestrated an assault which foreshadowed his uncle's later, more devastating plot. Born in Kuwait in 1968, Youssef travelled to the UK to study and improve his English language skills. After completing a degree in electrical engineering at Swansea University in Wales, Youssef returned to his home country, but left again after the 1990 invasion of Iraq. It is at this point he became involved in terrorist activity, and he spent time in both Afghanistan and Pakistan, learning how to construct bombs. He also established contacts in the Philippines with the jihadist group Abu Sayyaf before travelling to the USA in 1992. Here, Youssef assembled a team and spent months planning his attack on the World Trade Center. On the 26th of February 1993, Youssef and his fellow terrorists placed a 1,500-pound bomb in a rental van and detonated it in a garage underneath the World Trade Center.
Whoa.
This resulted in the deaths of 6 people and left over 1,000 injured.
I remember that. I was in
Those
school.
associates are caught. Youssef escaped to Pakistan.
I was still in school when that happened. I'm old. Like, I know exactly, like on 9/11, I remember exactly where I was at. I was Miss Cook's science class. That day we were supposed to dissect sharks. We didn't. We go in and she's got the TV on and we're just like, oh my God, Miss Cook has the TV on. What the heck is going on? And then we found out. It's weird to think it has been that long. And I remember that day to a T. We stayed in Miss Cook's class for probably about 45 minutes watching the TV. And then she turned it off. About 10, 15 minutes after that, her husband was the principal, Mr. Cook. He came on the loudspeaker and said, everybody meet at the gym. We're having an assembly. We go down there. We sit down there and, They tried to break it to us as best they could what was going on. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of information other than, what had been told to them. We ended up leaving early. And I remember this quite vividly because at the time both my parents worked night shifts, so they was asleep the whole day. They didn't know. Next thing you know, I'm at the door knocking on the door. My mom answers it. She's still in her pajamas. She's like, "What the hell are you doing home? What'd you do?" It's like, "They sent us home. You don't you know what's going on?" "What are you talking about?" So I'm like trying to explain to her the best way that I know how. And she just goes in and she's like, "All right, just shut up." And she turns on the news. She's like, "What?" And she, like, neither one of my parents went to work that day. Everything was pretty well just shut down. And yeah, still to this day, just, and I know whenever this took place, because this took place before that, I was in school. That's crazy. The things that you remember.
Despite initially laying low, Yousef went on to plot the assassination of the Pakistani Prime Minister, Benazir Bhutto, a few months later. It's claimed that Yousef made multiple attempts on Bhutto's life, which were aborted due to a detonator exploding in his face, leading his accomplices to rush him to hospital, and another failing due to the gun Yousef planned to use not coming into his possession in time. Again, Yousef evaded capture and went into hiding. In 1994, Yousef scaled up his level of involvement in terror-related activity, though thankfully not all of his operations were successful. He was part of an attempt to bomb the Israeli embassy in Bangkok in early 1994, a plan that only failed due to the van carrying the bombs crashing into a motorcyclist, which resulted in the driver fleeing and abandoning the vehicle. Later that year, he was responsible for the bombing of Shiite in Iran, which resulted in the death of 26 people. In December 1994, he planted a bomb on Philippine Airlines Flight 434, traveling from Manila to Tokyo. Yousef traveled under an assumed name, assembled the bomb on board, and planted it under a seat. He later disembarked, and the bomb detonated mid-air, killing one man and injuring at least 20 more. As the bomb had been planted far away enough from the fuel tank, a larger, more lethal explosion was averted, and the plane managed to make a successful emergency landing. Yousef returned to Manila, where he continued to make explosive devices. This led to the outbreak of a fire in his apartment, which he fled, leaving evidence of his activities in his wake. The suspicious staff at the complex contacted the Philippine authorities, who searched his apartment and discovered Yousef's plans for further terrorist attacks, including crashing an aircraft into the CIA headquarters in Virginia. Airlines were alerted, and a search for Yousef, already on the FBI's most wanted list, after the World Trade Center attack intensified. He was eventually captured in a hotel in Pakistan on the 7th of February 1995. Considering Yousef had planned further atrocities, including the assassination of Pope John Paul II and President Bill Clinton, as well as plotting to bomb 11 airliners traveling from Asia to the USA, it was an arrest that didn't come a moment too soon. Yousef was sent to the United States to stand trial for his crimes and was found guilty of bombing the World Trade Center and for planning to carry out further acts of terrorism. For this, he was sentenced to serve a life sentence plus 240 years, therefore ensuring that this relentless criminal will never be free to commit acts of death and destruction ever again.
I hope he's in a prison where he gets constantly. I hope that every time he farts, a tumbleweed falls out. Think about it. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Niels Hogel. Much like Beverly Orlick, the English nurse who was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of 4 children and the attempted murder of others under her care, so too is Niels Hogel considered an angel of death killer, but one whose numbers of victims has far surpassed Orlick's and seems to be continually rising. An angel of death killer is one that fulfills the role of a caregiver, and the rationale behind murdering the victim generally falls under one of 3 reasons. It can be in the guise of mercy. The individual may genuinely believe that by killing their patients they are releasing them from suffering, whether this is true or not. It may be due to a sadistic desire to exert the power of life or death over their victim, or it could be because the perpetrator falls under the description of a malignant hero. That is, they wish to be seen, to make an attempt to save their victim, earning them praise and attention, despite knowing their efforts may be futile. Niels Hogel is known to fall under this latter category. Born in 1976, Hogel began a career in nursing in 1999 and worked at 2 hospitals in northern Germany until 2005. It was at this point that a colleague working alongside Hogel in a facility in the city of Delmenhorst caught him injecting a patient with an unprescribed dose of adrenaline, a drug used for treating the cardiac condition Brugada syndrome. Hogel was promptly arrested and, at his trial in 2008, was found guilty of attempted murder and was subsequently sentenced to 7 years in prison. However, after the relative of another one of his deceased patients claimed to believe that Hogel may have been behind the death of their loved one, police launched a fresh investigation into his work history. They discovered that Hogel was dubbed the Lifesaver Rambo, as he was known to push colleagues out of the way in order to try and resuscitate a patient. The authorities also discovered that when Hogel was working, patient deaths and attempted resuscitations doubled in number. A trial that began in 2014 saw Hogel convicted of 2 counts of murder and 2 attempted murders.
Do you see that face?
Although he dramatically...
Do you see that face? I would not want him taking care of my cat, let alone, no. He look crazy, bro. No.
He confessed to killing 30 people. Since then, this number has risen steadily, and many patients that died at the 2 hospitals during Hogel's employment have been exhumed in order to detect the presence of adrenaline. In 52 cases, Hogel has claimed he simply cannot recall if he was responsible for the patient's death or not. The true death toll attributed to Hogel is shockingly thought to stand anywhere between 200 and 300, giving the dubious honor of being Germany's worst ever peacetime serial killer. Hogel is currently undergoing a 3rd trial for his crimes. He has publicly apologized for his horrific acts, and this no doubt offers little comfort to the heartbroken families of his victims, and to relatives of those who died under his care, who may never know if Hogel murdered their family member or not. He has been sentenced to life imprisonment, currently for the deaths of 85 people.
Oh my God. Only for the deaths of 85 people, you know. Whoa. And he's expected to have killed at least 200? How did no one catch on after like the first 50? I mean, I'm just saying. Wow.
Juana Barraza.
She looks evil.
The tragic early life of Juana Barraza and the deadliest crimes she went on to commit have led TV studios in both her native Mexico and in the US to create characters and shows based on her. Barraza was born to an alcoholic mother in 1957 in Hidalgo, Mexico, and endured a sad and abusive childhood. Reputedly, Barraza's mother gave her 12-year-old daughter away to a man in exchange for 3 bottles of beer. The girl's new guardian sexually abused her, resulting in the birth of at least 1 child to them. Understandably, this fueled a hatred within the young girl towards her callous mother, and it is this emotional response which decided the profile of Barraza's victims. Barraza grew up to be fascinated with the Mexican art of lucha libre, a distinctive form of wrestling, where participants are masked and wear colorful costumes.
I know I'm posting this a little late, But did this fool just say that this lady traded her baby girl for 3 bottles of beer? I joke and kid around with my kids that, you know, if someone offered me $1 million, I would trade them. But that's like $1 million. And it's a joke. To actually trade your child for 3 bottles of beer is messed up. That's the nicest word I can think of. There's so many really crappy words coming to my head right now. Like, that poor child.
A stocky woman, Barraza sometimes performed in amateur wrestling events under the stage name of La Dama dal Silenzio, or the Lady of Silence, whilst supplementing her income, which by now had to cover the cost of caring for her 4 children, by working as a popcorn seller at wrestling matches. Barraza, however, developed another persona, one which led her to become known as the Old Lady Killer. Barraza's crime spree started in Mexico City in the late 1990s, and she had 2 specific methods for selecting her victims. She targeted elderly, lone women, sometimes approaching them outside and offering to help them home with their shopping, or to assist them with their housework. Barraza had also somehow obtained a list of residents receiving government aid, and from this she selected aged female victims. She would then visit the chosen women at home, and with the aid of a government ID card, would pose as a dutiful social worker, offering advice on assistance projects and financial aid that may be available to her unwitting victim. Once Barraza had gained entrance to the woman's property, she would promptly garrote them, often utilizing tights or a telephone cord, and she would take trophies like religious trinkets from the scene of her crime. Troublingly, the bodies of her victims also bore signs that they had been sexually violated. A police profile informed by witness testimonies that a broad-shouldered, heavily built woman had been seen leaving the scene of one of the crimes Barraza committed led police to believe the perpetrator could be a cross-dresser. Precious time was lost by police arresting and questioning many members of this community, much to their outrage, and Barraza continued her murderous rampage. It was only in 2006 that police finally caught her. After strangling 82-year-old Anne Maria de los Reyes Alfaro with a stethoscope, Barraza, now 48, was spotted leaving the premises by Alfaro's tenant, who alerted the police. Barraza was swiftly arrested in the local vicinity, and once questioned, confessed to 3 murders. Committed, she claimed, out of anger, but protested that she was not involved in any further crimes. Despite this, Barraza's fingerprints were matched to 10 other murders, though she was eventually charged and found guilty of 16 counts of murder and aggravated burglary in a 2008 trial. It's thought, however, that she may be responsible for between 42 and 48 murders. Juana Barraza was sentenced to 759 years in prison, meaning that the now 62-year-old former wrestler turned serial killer will never be released.
And to think, all because her mama gave her away for 3 bottles of beer. Her life just went down. I mean, I can't say that I get it or that I understand in any way, shape, or form. But as a child, to be given away for 3 bottles of beer, and then the person that took you did really bad things to you, I get I get the profile of it. Like, I understand why she's going after other women, because the whole mommy complex thing that she has going on, probably. But my God, that's one messed up puppy.
Mikhail Popkov. Mikhail Popkov terrorized the city of Angarsk for 20 years, raping and killing women from the area to such a savage degree that he was nicknamed both the Angarsk Maniac and the Werewolf. Incarcerated since 2012, Popkov is now considered Russia's most prolific serial killer.
He looks like a creepy janitor.
Born in the city that would become his hunting ground in 1964, there is little information available about Popkov's formative years. He grew up to marry and have a daughter, and worked as a police officer for some years, before taking a job as a security guard. It was under the guise of working as a trusted law enforcement agent that many of Popkov's victims met their fate. From 1992, Popkov trawled the streets of Angers in his police car at night, looking for intoxicated women leaving clubs or bars, and would offer them a lift home. Once they were in his car, Popkov would take his passenger to the quiet of nearby woodland, and brutally rape and kill them. Popkov used an assortment of weapons, including screwdrivers, axes, and knives, to murder his victims. Sickeningly, some bodies were reportedly found with as many as 145 stab wounds, and others had been decapitated or had organs removed.
What?
Amazingly, one of the 2 victims to survive being attacked by Popkov, a young woman, managed to positively identify him in 1998. After telling officers that it was a policeman who had assaulted her, the 17-year-old confirmed that Popkov was her assailant. After questioning officers, showed her a photograph of him. However, Popkov's wife, disbelieving that her husband was capable of such a crime, provided him with a false alibi, the authorities believing their employee to be innocent, therefore disregarded her claims. This enabled Popkov to remain at large for a further 14 years. Eventually, police narrowed their field of suspects after discovering the car tracks from a Lada Niva, an off-road vehicle commonly used by the Russian police, were found at several of the crime scenes. The police took DNA samples from 230,000 Angers residents, including 3,500 officers, and compared them to DNA evidence found on the victims. This led to Popkov's arrest in 2012. Finally, the women of Angers were safe. In 2015, Popkov was convicted for 22 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. However, 3 years later, he admitted to yet another 59 murders, including that of one fellow policeman.
Did he say another 59 murders on top of the 20 already and the 2 attempted? What? What? Crazy? That blows my mind how... Oh my God. That blows my mind how someone could kill that many people and just not care. If I killed someone, I'd be like, oh my God, I killed someone. Why? He's just like, I killed 59 more people. You don't know my life. Shoot. I don't know what that was. That was not a Russian accent anyway. For some reason, I went Hilljack for some reason. I don't know. It's the vodka. Maybe he didn't drink enough vodka. That's his problem. Not enough vodka. That's what we go with.
Due to insufficient evidence for 3 of the murders, Popkov was given an additional life sentence for 56 further killings, though his final victim tally is thought to be anywhere between 78 and 84. Popkov has explained his actions were motivated by a desire to clean the streets of Siberian cities of immoral women. He had spared women to whom he had offered a lift, but who had declined, deeming them as moral. He often helped them home and carried their shopping into their house, before leaving them unharmed. Troublingly, unrepentant, he will live out the rest of his life in the maximum Black Dolphin prison, located near the border of Kazakhstan. So, that's 5 extraordinarily dangerous and scary criminals who are thankfully behind bars. I really found this video interesting, and as always,
shoot, they need to be under the jail, not behind bars. They need to be under that, like, way under the jail, far under. No. Okay. Okay. let's move on. This one's going to be Nuke's Top 5 Ghost Videos. So scary, you'll cry like a big old baby. Like a baby. Your baby got ate by a dingo. A dingo ate your baby. I don't know why we went there. It's a weird day, y'all.
Top 5 Ghosts caught on camera. Attachment. Tammy Jermathy says that paranormal activity has become a regular part of her life. Tammy believes that a dark entity has attached itself to her and follows her from home to home, no matter where she moves. Tammy is so intent on capturing evidence of the supernatural activity that she experiences on a daily basis that she set up multiple motion-activated security cameras all around her home in Mountain House, California. For the first time ever, she captures what she has witnessed firsthand throughout her life on camera.
Whoa. See, the cat's freaked out, bro. What is that? What was that?
Her cameras capture extreme poltergeist activity as furniture and objects.
That cat's freaked. That cat is freaked the hell out. Okay, you know it's real because if it had been something over in there pulling the string, the cat would be looking over in there like, why are you doing that, bro? It's cat. They're cynical little creatures. But no, it is staring straight up at that like it's freaked out. Look at it. It's freaked out. It's like, no. Poor kitty.
Move on their own, and then most terrifying of all,
what is
pale
that?
figure can be seen looking out from behind a wall. And these spooky incidents are just the beginning of what Tammy captures on her cameras.
Poor Tammy.
On January 30th, 2020, Tammy packs up her life and moves from California to her new home in McKinney, Texas. Almost immediately after moving in, the paranormal activity starts up once again, and the events only seem to get worse as Tammy, her cats, and even her dog are terrorized by the dark presence in her home.
So he's literally been standing there now for about 10 minutes. Won't come when I call him. Hasn't moved at all. Just keeps staring in here at me. Really kind of creeping me out.
What?
Tammy's cats seem visibly spooked by something we can't see. And as her cute little doggy is alone in the kitchen, a fork suddenly launches from the dishes in the kitchen sink and lands in an empty
spoon, bro.
pan.
It's a spoon.
Another area in Tammy's new Texas home that seems to attract a lot of supernatural activity is her bedroom, where she keeps a collection of antique dolls, old photos, and clothing in a wooden and glass display cabinet.
It's the dolls. I told you. It's the dolls. Creepy little shit. I don't like dolls. I had an aunt that had dolls all up in her dining room, like all around the ceiling. I hated that room. And no, I hated that room. And that's where they sit most of the time, was in there in the dining room. They had like a little TV over in front of the windows, and they sit there, they watch their TV at the kitchen table, they'd play cards and stuff. Anytime I was coming over, they would move to the kitchen and sit at the little island that was in there, because I wouldn't go through that room. at all. If I need to go to the front room, I'd go outside, go around the house, go in through the front door. If I need to get to the kitchen or the bathroom in the back, I'd go outside, go around the house, go through the back door. I would not ever cut through that dining room because of little crappy dolls like that and 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 that. No. Nope. I would put them in a box and I would just write down a random address and mail it to it. It'd be someone else's problem. So, if any of y'all listening out there and one day y'all just get a mysterious package and it's got a doll in it, I'm sorry. Just saying.
Over the years, Tammy has captured countless motion-activated videos of terrifying activity in her home, and she begins to share her videos online on TikTok for the world to see. She immediately begins to receive a lot of attention from concerned paranormal fans as she frequently uploads her haunting experiences. To Tammy's horror, the unknown entity that she captured on camera in her old home seems to have returned with a vengeance.
There's a cat. Hold on. My big old booty in the way. I'll take that back. Hold on. My big old booty.
With a vengeance.
Right. Watch right here. What is that?
A strange mist seems to appear in Tammy's kitchen, living room, and bedroom. Most of all, the same figure that she captured on camera in California seems to appear in her new Texas home's bathroom mirror. So, what do you think is going on in Tammy's home?
Get rid of the dolls, burn down the house.
Made a connection to her and now be following her from home to home, never stopping? As always, I leave it up to you to decide. You can watch all of Tammy's paranormal experiences over on her TikTok page, The Haunted One 36, and her YouTube channel, The Haunted One. Leave.
I'd get rid of every doll. Like I said, just write down random addresses and just mail them there. Let someone else worry about it. Don't put a return to sender address on so they can't send it back. Burn down the house that you're in and just walk away. Yep. That's what I do.
Popular Japanese ghost hunters Gachan, Daichan, and Yasuke from the YouTube channel Clip Store are contacted by a viewer who tells them the story of the historic Sabukawa village in Miyazaki Prefecture, Japan. A small...
If I'm not mistaken, we've seen a video with these fools in it before, and okay, now in that one, dude was like scratching his head and he fell back and tried to act like something pushed him off of a TV or whatever. But what happened after that scared the crap out of me. I don't. No.
Japanese village was built way back in 1597 and
I told you it's been one of them days. But there was a dark looking lady figure behind his friend, which was upstairs, and when his friend turned around to see what he was talking about, it was gone. But in the motion of turning his camera and his light around, you could see like the danglingness of her hair on the wall, like the shadow of it. Just talking about, gives me the goosebumps hair standing up, y'all. Look at that. Can you see that? Goosey bumps. Ooh, 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 no.
A remote area high in the mountains. The mountain village had no roads and was a bit dangerous to travel to.
So by the mid-1900s, many of the villagers began to leave the settlement. By 1989, the historic 400-year-old Sabukawa village was completely abandoned. An anonymous viewer tells the ghost hunters that a few years ago, a friend of hers went to visit the decaying and empty houses of Sabukawa village, deep in the mountains. The urban explorer told her that he was confronted by an angry old couple who seemed to be living in the abandoned village. Strangely, they told him to, quote, leave and die. Allegedly, only 6 months after his journey.
Not even leave or die, it's leave and die. That's rude. You should at least get an option. So does it mean they gotta stay there just to live? Or does it want them to leave, just go away and die? I mean, is that what it's saying here? Like, just go and die. Or stay and live. I need to know.
Each of the village in the bizarre meeting, the man passed away. Now, the viewer says that as inaccessible as the mountain village is, it seems very unlikely that an old couple would be living there all alone. So considering the odd encounter and the man's subsequent death, the viewer is convinced that the people that her friend met were actually angry, vengeful spirits. The clip store team sets out to investigate whether the abandoned Sabukawa village might be haunted. When they arrive at the location, they realize just how hard it is to reach the town. They have to leave their car and continue hiking on foot. After they finally arrive at the village, the team decides to split up and meet back in 30 minutes. They all set timers on their phones and go their separate ways.
Never split up. I'm going to tell you why. When it comes to doing ghost stuff, when you guys split up, you don't know where the other ones are. Stick together, stay as a group. That way, if there is a noise over there, you're not saying, oh, I don't know what that is, when it could be one of your buddies over there. If you're all together and a noise happens over there, you're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm going to believe you don't know what that is, seeing that you're all right there. Don't split up. Stay together. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. Stay together as a group. If all three of you are here and something happens over there, I'm going to believe that's something that's not supposed to be. Now I'm on the fence.
Explore. In the dead of night, Clip Store host Kachan discovers the ruins of an abandoned school. What happens next is downright creepy.
お、裏側。いや、もう無理だね。傾いてるしな。え？傾いてるしな。
Could also be knocking. Sound like someone going.
柱足元みたいなして。え？は？めっちゃ。誰？誰もいるわけないけどさ。
Gachan discovers that the building is on the verge of collapse, but still, from somewhere inside, he hears the sound of someone running.
If they was all together, I would be like, that's something. But that could be one of the other two just hitting on the side of the building, because it does sound like someone's going just like down the side, and that's going to make it sound like someone's running. See, stay together, people. Stay together.
Followed by the loud bang of something slamming or falling.
すごい。お、何？タイマー鳴った。いや、めっちゃ物音したね、今。はい。ちょっと待って。30分経ちました。戻ります。
Gachan's timer alerts him that the 30 minutes are up, and then there's some strange loud bang from inside the creepy building that seems to agree. Gachan returns to the entrance of the village where he finds fellow investigator Yasuke. The two guys wait for their friend Daichan, but he just never shows up. The guys start to get worried and decide to go look for him. After a long search, they finally find Daichan in what appears to be a long-abandoned house.
Daichan? 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 Daichan?
Daichan is confused and possibly dehydrated, just sitting there as if in a daze. But his camera is still recording. Fearing for Daichan's health and safety, they decide to just get out of there and make the long hike back to the car. Later, when they look back at Daichan's captured footage,
He was tired from running up and down that building, knocking on it, making it sound like someone running.
they're shocked to their core. Daichan seems to have encountered something absolutely terrifying.
Oh, God.
This is the footage from Daichan's camera.
はい、それでは大ちゃんは今からこの山の上に登って、この家めちゃくちゃ綺麗じゃない？今まで見た家より一番綺麗なんやけど、誰も住んでないよね。結構しっかり残ってる。うわぁ、仏壇。神棚が置いてある。家がある。めちゃくちゃしっかり。また時計だ。
What? What? What did he see? Well, don't go towards the thing you think you saw. What is he seeing?
John suddenly sees a bizarre pale face staring
Okay.
back at him from behind a door. In shock, John suddenly sees
Oh. Yeah, I would have shit everywhere. I didn't see that. I didn't. He went too fast. I didn't see that. I see it now. I would have picked.
He's a bizarre pale face staring back at him from behind a door. In shock, he stumbles back and falls, but when he gets back up, the mysterious, creepy face has disappeared.
It did take him a minute to get up, though. I'm just saying, I wouldn't have waited around to scare him again either.
But then, as he turned,
That be someone. Like maybe down, like doing a prayer or something. Ooh, I got the goosey bumps now. Looky, see? Ooh, that gave me the goosey bumps. Ooh, I don't know. No habla español. I've been gone.
turns around, he sees a man wearing a traditional Japanese robe, kneeling at a Buddhist altar on the other side of the abandoned home. Later, when his friends find him and Gachan walks outside, the same terrifying apparition of the man in the robe.
Now, see, that could just be
window, just watching him
a curtain,
as he leaves.
Fog or something. I don't know if that is anything. I don't know if that's something that could just be pagodia. Your eyes trying to make you think it is what it isn't. Because, I mean, you can tell that there's material hanging up. So maybe that's just something that's ripped or tore up and making it look like that. But the other two, yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, though. Well, I don't know. I mean, you did kind of see like a little bit of like maybe 2 eyes. See, there you go. My brain trying to convince me that it's something when it's not.
The Clip Store team capture real paranormal activity in the abandoned Sabukawa village.
I wouldn't go back to find out.
What you think. You can watch this entire 2-part investigation with even more scary paranormal moments over on the Japanese YouTube channel, Clip Store.
They look
Before we move on
interesting.
to the next video, if you see anything that you think should be included in the top 5, contact us at nukestop5@gmail.com. Ghosts of Carmel, Maine. Now, if you watched Nuke Stop By for very long, you know all about the YouTube channel Ghosts of Carmel, Maine. But for anyone new, here's a quick recap. So a man named Kent Burris says that he and his family live in a house that is extremely haunted by multiple ghosts. Over the years, Kent has posted over 100 spooky paranormal video captures to his channel, Ghosts of Carmel, Maine.
Okay, there he is, in the window again. You guys say something or do something. Oh my God! No!
Now, in Kent's latest video series, he plans to spend 72 hours all alone inside his haunted home, as he believes...
Who cares? It's your home. You spend more than 72 hours in there anyways. He just wanted a 3-day weekend. Don't let him lie to you. He ain't doing it for paranormal reasons. He's like, I just want to chill for 3 days.
This might ramp up the paranormal activity and also make the incidents easier to verify.
This video is about being alone in the lamb house for 72 hours. Because when you sleep in this house and you know there's other people in this house, you know, you question whether something was paranormal related, but you're not sure because there's other people in the house or the cats are in the house. Now, during this 72 hours, the cat stayed out on the porch the whole time.
Throughout the day and night, Kent captures multiple strange EVPs throughout his home, and some of the messages are truly disturbing.
Are you in the kitchen now?
Are you?
Female disembodied voice.
Oh, God. the rudest damn ghost I ever heard in my life. Oh, oh, I just can't. You smell like shit. Oh. Oh God. Oh, oh, that was too much. Oh God.
And some of the supernatural EVPs that Kent captures even seem to be chilling threats focused directly at him. Now, as Ken is recording EVPs, he is also capturing video. When he reviews his footage later, he realizes that he captured something else in his house. Something absolutely horrifying.
Now, when I was doing the captions on these EVPs, I noticed something really strange by the steps. Well, I went to brighten it up and just to check it out, just out of curiosity.
Whoa. Okay. 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 No. Burn it. Burn it down. Burn it down. That is exactly what I would do. They're being rude. They say you smell like shit. They won't come near you because you smell.
A dark figure with an odd, distorted face seems to be peering at Kent from around the corner of a doorway, but it's so dark that he doesn't even notice. Later, Kent heads upstairs to film in his bedroom, but he suddenly hears an odd, unexplained noise right behind him.
Now, when I go through the door of the bedroom, I hear a strange sound behind me, and I turn the camera around really fast. Now, I didn't see anything there, but out of curiosity, when I was going over these recordings, after I saw what was captured on the stairway, I also brightened up, lightened up the recording when I spun the camera around.
Zoom in and
there was another
enhance.
strange anomaly captured.
Ken hears a noise, and as he spins around, he captures an unexplained shadow that seems to descend the stairs and disappear from sight.
That could just be a shadow. Could just be a shadow because it's also on the rails. It's also on the rails.
Check out his full 2-part series over on his channel, Ghosts of Carmel, Maine, and decide for yourself.
It was also on the rails.
Videos. Nuke's Top 5 viewer Jordan By sent in a video that he took while on an exploration trip to Bodmin Moor in Cornwall, England. Bodmin Moor is a very remote 80-mile stretch of land that is full of eerie legends and historic abandoned properties and ruins. The area is so remote that Jordan and his friend James Wheeler had to walk 3 hours into the wilderness just to find it. One bit of famous folklore from this area is the gruesome tale of Charlotte Diamond, a young girl who in 1844 had her life tragically and brutally taken on Bodmin Moor. The man who took her life, Matthew Weeks, was hanged for his crime.
Good.
And to this day, it is said that both of their spirits roam the moorlands. So, Jordan and his friend James are taking videos of an abandoned home in the middle of nowhere in Bodmin Moor, and they capture something truly chilling. Did you see it? When the footage is slowed down, the face of a child can be seen looking into the window from the other side of the abandoned building. Jordan doesn't even notice and has no idea what he's just recorded as the little face seems to just duck away from the window. The explorer claims that he and his friend James were the only ones there, and he believes that the face might belong to the restless spirit of Charlotte Diamond, the girl who lost her life there so many years ago. But what do you think this could be? Let me know down in the comments. In another creepy video, Nukes Top 5 viewer Yanis Tassis from the city of Kozani, Greece, claims that he was on his way home one night when suddenly he hears a very bizarre sound. He quickly takes out his phone and begins to record.
I'd be pooping.
Yanis explains that the small structure is the entrance to the town's water tank, and he believes that whatever he's hearing might be something echoing from inside the tank. But echoing from where? Either way, whatever the sound is remains a mystery to this day.
Not from where, from what, bro? Nukes, it's not from where, it's from what? What was making the sound? I don't like any of it. I wouldn't drink water. I wouldn't even take a shower in that stuff. Nope.
Viewer Jessie Chapman claims that late one night her sister, who lives in West Virginia, captured something very strange on her CCTV doorbell camera, and she simply can't explain it.
No, I see that.
A creepy translucent figure appears to be walking on the lawn right in front of Jessie's sister. But Jessie's sister says she didn't see anyone or anything at the time, and she has no idea what the security camera captured that night. But whether it's something paranormal or just some very, very odd video glitch, as always, I leave it up to you to decide. The House of the Scarecrow. Paranormal investigators Kevin Barranco and Fabio Adalco from the popular YouTube channel Archivo Extinto travel to an abandoned farmhouse in Mexico that locals claim is extremely haunted by a bizarre humanoid entity that they call, quote, the Scarecrow. It is said that an elderly couple who used to live in the large farmhouse tragically passed away after being abandoned by their own family. Their remains were not discovered for many years, and the farm was left in a severe state of decay. Over the years, local residents and even visitors to the farm began to tell the frightening story of a scarecrow-like spirit that terrorizes anyone who dares to set foot on the haunted property. Ghost hunters Kevin and Fabio set out to investigate whether the stories are true. Very soon after the guys arrive, they find something strange hidden behind a pile of bricks. And immediately after they pry it loose and pick it up, they witness something downright creepy.
No hay como un palito como para sacarlo, güey. Está súper atorada, güey. Está súper atorada, güey. Con un dedo trata. Ya. Es como una pipa, ¿no? Creo que sí. ¿Sí es? Ah, no mames. ¿Qué?
Nope. Time to go. Time to go. Why would you still be holding the little face thing?
¿La?
No.
¿Alguien se metió?
Kevin and Fabio find an odd small figurine hidden underneath a pile of bricks. And then suddenly, right behind them, a door closes on its own. The two explorers immediately head in to investigate.
Nope.
But they find nothing to explain the door's movement. As they continue to look around, things take a terrifying turn.
Of course.
Allá, cuidado. Se vio el güey.
Whoa.
Allá, cuidado.
Nope. My big ass be gone. I'm sorry.
Allá, cuidado. Se vio el güey. No mames.
Nope.
Cuidado.
Nope.
¿Verdad? ¿Qué viste? No sé. Sí, pero no se vio. Solo vi que algo se metió aquí, güey. Bueno, me asustes, ¿qué viste? Güey. No me asustes, ¿qué viste? Fue una sombra negra. Justo aquí. En este lado, güey. Aquí. Aquí, como si se fuera metiendo hacia acá, güey. ¿Sabes? Aquí. Sí, güey.
That's his stomach. He hungry.
Someone or something looking at them from behind a doorway. They rush over, but again, no one there. That's when the two friends hear a blood-curdling deep growl or shriek coming from somewhere nearby.
Nope.
So did Kevin and Fabio capture the sinister humanoid entity that the locals call, quote, the Scarecrow?
Chupacabra.
Or is it all just an elaborate hoax? You decide. You can check out this full investigation and many more creepy videos over on the YouTube channel, Archivo Extinto. Thanks so much for watching. Look at my...
Alright. Now, as per the usual, you know who we're ending with, right? Oh, MrBallen. Alright, this is MrBallen's. His family never saw it coming. That title sounds ominous. Crap.
Today's story covers one of the strangest and most hotly debated mysteries on the internet. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 3 or 4 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to help the like button pack up all their things so they can move, but only use old and weak tape so the bottom of the moving boxes fall out as soon as anyone tries to lift them. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story.
MrBallen. 2 weeks later.
In mid-August 2013, Mike and Karen Laspisa helped their beloved only child, 19-year-old Bryce Laspisa, get all of his things packed up and into the family car. Bryce had just spent the summer with his parents in their home in Laguna Niguel.
That face. Where have I seen this face? Where have I seen that face? It's a shifty face. I like it.
California, which is one of the nicest places to live in the entire country. But now that the summer was coming to an end, it was time for Bryce to head back to Sierra College in Rocklin, California, where he was set to start his sophomore year. Once all of his things were packed inside the trunk of the car, all three of them hopped inside and then made the 7-hour drive north to his campus. Once his parents had moved him into his apartment, they gave him a hug and a kiss and wished him luck, and then they left. On their ride back home, Mike and Karen talked about how well their son seemed to be doing. He loved his school, he loved the program he was in graphic design, he was a very gifted artist, he had lots of friends, he had a wonderful girlfriend. It just seemed like he was living his best life and he was on the path to success. So nothing could prepare them for what their son did 2 weeks later. Just a couple of days after getting dropped off at school, Bryce's very close friend and roommate, Sean, and Bryce's girlfriend, Kim, noticed Bryce was acting erratically. Specifically, he was drinking a ton of hard alcohol. Now, Bryce was no saint. He liked to drink and party like many other kids his age did, but the amount of alcohol he was consuming was concerning. Also, Bryce began experimenting with a drug called Vyvanse, which is a very powerful stimulant that's normally used to treat attention deficit disorder. Now, Bryce didn't have attention deficit disorder. He was taking it in order to stay up late at night and play video games. But between the heavy drinking and the drug use, it seemed like Bryce's personality was starting to change. He was becoming anxious and skittish and kind of paranoid. And so finally, Sean and Kim confronted him about his substance abuse and asked him, what's going on? What's causing you to act this way? And Bryce would say, nothing, guys, I'm fine. I'm just, drinking and doing whatever I want to do. It's not a big deal. But Sean and Kim, they weren't buying it. They were convinced that something bad had happened to Bryce, and the way he was coping with it was by drinking really heavily and taking this drug. On August 28th, so about 2 weeks after Bryce has been dropped back off at school by his parents, Bryce and his roommate Sean were alone in their apartment together. And at some point, as they're sitting there just kind of minding their own business, Bryce says to Sean, hey, I want to give you something. And he takes his diamond earrings out and he gives them to Sean. And Sean's looking at these earrings and he's like, didn't your mom give these to you? Aren't these important to you? These are expensive. And Bryce just says, no, I want you to have them. And so Sean is looking at these earrings, looking back at Bryce, wondering what's going on here. And then before he can even refuse the gift, Bryce is grabbing his Xbox and putting it on the table and telling Sean, I want you to have this too. Take my Xbox. And so Sean is like, I can't accept these two things. These are expensive. These are valuable to you. What's going on here? But Bryce would just say, look, man, I want you to have these things. You're important to me and I want to give these to you. And so as Sean is sitting there wondering how to handle this very strange offering, he watched Bryce pull his phone out and begin really aggressively texting somebody. And then after a while, Bryce looks up from his phone and he tells Sean, hey, just so you know, I broke up with Kim. At this point, Sean knows, okay, something is definitely wrong here. There's no reason Bryce would break up with Kim. They were such a loving couple. They doted on each other. They were very close. They had just seen each other earlier in the day. Nothing seemed to be wrong. And so now Bryce is text breaking up with her. It didn't make any sense. Plus, Bryce is now trying to give him all these valuable things. It just wasn't really adding up. And so Sean decided he needed.
Where are you going with this, Mr. Ballen? Where are you going? I don't.
To get in touch with Bryce's parents because clearly someone needed to intervene. And so Sean waited until Bryce left. Bryce actually left to go talk to Kim. And at that point, Sean got his phone out and he looked up Bryce's parents and he called them. Bryce's mother, Karen, she picks up the phone and Sean explains that, your son, he's acting strangely. He's abusing drugs and alcohol. And I wouldn't be doing this unless I thought there was a problem. Like, I'm not trying to get him in trouble. I want you to reach out to him and see what's going on because I think there's a problem. And so Karen was alarmed by this. She had no idea any of this was going on. And she says, okay, I'll reach out to my son. Thank you for telling me. And so they hang up. And before Karen can even call Bryce is calling her. And so Karen answers the phone, but it's not Bryce. It's Kim, his now ex-girlfriend. And she says to Karen, hey, I'm sorry to just call you like this, but your son, he just showed up at my apartment and he's acting so strangely that I actually took his keys. I don't want him to drive. There's something wrong with him. It's hard to describe, but he just seems totally off. And so now Karen's really concerned because just seconds ago, Sean has told her basically the same thing. And so Karen asks Kim, will you please put my son on the phone? Bryce picks up the phone phone and he says, "Hey, Mom," and he sounds totally normal. And she asks him, "What's going on? I keep hearing that you're acting strangely, and, what are you doing over at Kim's apartment? What's going on here?" And Bryce would tell his mom that, "Look, Mom, I just broke up with Kim. It's a very messy breakup. That's why she's calling you. She's upset. And, that's why I'm over here. We're talking about it. And look, at this point, I just really want to go home. I want to go back to my apartment, but she has my keys. Can you please tell her to give me my car keys back so I can leave?" But Karen wasn't really buying it. She knew her son really well, and it just seemed totally strange that two of his very close friends in his inner circle would say the same thing, independent of one another. And so she says, "You know what, Bryce, look, I want you to just stay there, and I'm going to fly out there first thing tomorrow morning, and I'm going to just see what's going on out there." And at this, Bryce immediately says, "No, Mom, I have a lot to talk to you about, and until I talk to you about it, I don't want you coming out here." And so Karen's like, "What do you mean you have a lot to talk to me about? What is it that you have to talk to me about? I don't really understand." But Bryce refused to elaborate.
You're killing me, Bryce. Oh my God. What is going on here? I don't
The phone, which Karen thought was very odd because Bryce was remarkably forthcoming with his parents. They had a very open relationship. They were very honest with each other. So for him to not even give a hint at whatever it was that was on his mind that in some way had to do with what was going on here, it just seemed very odd and unnecessarily cryptic. And so Karen gave up trying to get more information out of her son, and instead she put her husband on the phone. And he asked Bryce, "Hey, what's going on here? Are you okay? And your mom tells me there's some problem. Like, what's going on here?" And Bryce again just reiterates, "Look, Dad, I just broke up with my girlfriend. That's all that's going on here. There's no need to be concerned. I just need one of you to tell Kim to give me my keys back so I can go back to my apartment. That's all I need right now." And so Mike felt convinced that his son was totally fine, even though it did seem odd that two of his friends had said he was acting erratically. But from Mike's perspective, Bryce seemed just fine. And so he said as much to Karen and thought, let's just get Kim to give him his keys back and he can go back to his apartment and we can talk to him later about whatever it is that's going on. And so reluctantly, Karen gets back on the phone and she asks to speak with Kim. And she says, "Hey, Kim, would you mind giving our son his keys back? He'd like to leave." And so Kim says, "Okay, I'll give him his keys." And then they hung up. And then Kim got the keys out. She gave them to Bryce and Bryce left. At about 11:30 p.m. that night, Bryce was in his car. He was getting ready to leave when his mom called him back and said, "Okay, look, I want you to go home, but as soon as you get there, just give me a call so I know you're safe." And Bryce said, "No problem, I'll give you a call." About an hour and a half later at 1 a.m., Bryce called his mom back to let her know that he was home safe at his apartment, and Karen and Mike are totally relieved, and they tell their son, "Okay, we'll talk to you tomorrow morning." 10 hours later at 11 a.m. on August 29th, Karen received an automated phone call from her car insurance company letting her know that roadside assistance had been used on their 2003 Toyota Highlander car. That was Bryce's car. And so Karen's totally confused because the last she spoke to her son, he was at his apartment. He was home safe. He did not have any car problems. And so she's thinking, did he get up early this morning and get into an accident and call roadside assistance? Or maybe last night he got into car problems and just didn't tell her about it, but they were minor. And so she calls Bryce, but Bryce doesn't pick up. And so she dials his roommate, Sean. Sean does answer the phone, and she says, "Hey, would you mind putting Bryce on the line?" But Sean says, "Bryce isn't here, and he didn't come home last night." Considering the general weirdness around their son's recent behavior, this really shocked Karen and Mike. At first, they thought, we need to call the police because something horrible has happened. But then they thought, well, wait a minute. Let's go into his bank statements because he has a credit card that we gave him, and let's see if there's any recent purchases that will allow us to track where he is. And so they pull up his bank statements, and his most recent charge was only a few hours earlier, and it was at a car repair shop in Buttonwillow, California, which is this small desert town right off of the I-5 highway, located about halfway between his school campus and their hometown in Laguna Niguel. And so Karen and Mike assume their son last night must not have gone to his apartment, but instead just kept on driving south in an attempt to drive all the way back home to his hometown of Laguna Niguel. I mean, after all, he did tell his mom he had a lot to talk about, and he didn't want to talk about it on the phone, and so they assumed he must be driving here to talk about whatever it was in person. And perhaps he ran into some car problems in Buttonwillow, California. That's why he pulled over. That's why there's this charge at this auto repair shop. And so Karen calls the auto repair shop in Buttonwillow, and a man who worked there named Christian answered the phone. And so Karen asked him, have you seen my son? He's got red hair. He's got a tattoo on his arm. He's driving a 2003 Toyota Highlander. And Christian says, oh, yeah, we saw him a couple of hours ago. We responded to his roadside assistance call. He ran out of gas on the I-5 highway. He pulled into a rest stop, and we drove to that rest stop, and we gave him gas. And so Karen asked Christian, did my son indicate where he was going next? And Christian said, no, he didn't. We just gave him the gas and then we left. But if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to just drive over to the rest stop. It's only about 15.
I don't know if I like where this is going. You're too calm, MrBallen. You're too calm. Things are about to hit the... Shit's about to hit the fan. All right, feel it in my bones. Feel it in my skeleton bones.
Minutes away and see if he's still there. It's unlikely because it's been a couple of hours, but maybe. And Karen and Mike are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Would you do that? That would be great. And so Christian hops in his car and he drives the 15 minutes over to this rest stop. And he's not really expecting to see Bryce in this parking lot. It had been almost 3 hours. But he pulls into the lot. And there is the 2003 Toyota Highlander with Bryce sitting inside of it. He's just sitting behind the wheel, staring out into nothingness. And so Christian walks up to the driver's side and he looks down to get Bryce's attention. And Bryce kind of snaps out of it and looks up. And he's surprised to see Christian again. He rolls the window down and Christian says to him, hey, I just talked to your parents. They're really concerned about you. You got to talk to them. And so Christian actually pulls out his phone and he calls Karen and says, hey, he is still here. Here he is. And he hands the phone to Bryce. And as soon as Bryce puts the phone to his ear and he says hello, Karen's like, what are you doing? What are you doing just sitting in this rest stop in the middle of Buttonwillow, California? We're so worried about you. And Bryce didn't really have an answer. He just kept telling his mom, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. And so finally his mom stops trying to get information from him and just says, look, please just fill your car up with gas and come straight home, please. And Bryce says, okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll do that right now. And so Bryce hands the phone back to Christian. Christian pulls it up to his ear and he says, hey, Karen, it looks like he's leaving now, so I'm going to take off. Karen thanks him and they hang up. Christian goes back into his car. He leaves the lot, and as he's driving, he looks over at Bryce, and it didn't really look like Bryce was getting ready to leave. It looked like he had just gone back to sitting and blankly staring out of his car. But Christian figured, you know what? He just talked to his mom. He said he was going to go home. I'm sure that's what he's going to do. The drive from Buttonwillow, California, south to Laguna Niguel, California, where Bryce's parents were, was about a 3-hour trip. And so the Los Pisos were expecting their son to arrive around 3 p.m. By 3:30 p.m., when he still hadn't shown up and he still hadn't called, Karen began calling her son, but he wasn't answering the phone. And as much as Karen and Mike wanted to believe their son had just gotten stuck in traffic or something like that, they knew deep down something was wrong. Something was off about his behavior. They just didn't understand what it was. For the next several hours, they continuously tried calling their son, and he never answered the phone. And so finally, by 6 p.m. that night, when he still hadn't shown up and they still couldn't get in touch with him, they called the police and they filed an official missing person report. The police began their search by contacting Bryce's cell phone provider, AT&T, and they asked them to use their cell phone towers to ping Bryce's cell phone, basically triangulate where his phone is located. And once they did that and they had the actual location of his phone, the police and Bryce's parents were shocked at where it was. It was still in Buttonwillow, California. It was located just a couple of miles down the road from that rest stop where Christian had last seen Bryce. It was now in this parking lot of this hotel. And so the police around Buttonwillow were alerted to the fact that Bryce was a missing person and his phone was apparently in this parking lot. And so police were sent over there to see if Bryce was there too. And so the police arrived in this hotel parking lot, and sure enough, right in the middle is the 2003 Toyota Highlander with Bryce sitting behind the wheel, just sitting there staring out the front. And so an officer walks up and he knocks on the glass and Bryce rolls the window down. And the officer would say Bryce acted totally normally. He was friendly, he was lucid, he answered all their questions. When he got out of the car and they conducted field sobriety tests, he passed all of them. He even said, hey, if you want to search my car, go for it. I'm not doing anything out here. And so the officers did search his car, and there were no drugs, no alcohol. There was nothing suspicious in his car. And when they asked him, what are you doing out here? Your parents are so concerned about you. Bryce would tell them that he was just sitting there. He didn't really have much of an answer, but he told them he planned on going home soon. And so one of the officers said to him, hey, you really need to call your mom. You need to call home and let them know that you're okay. And when they told him to do that, Bryce suddenly became really apprehensive, like he did not want to call home, and the officer picked up on it. He said, hey, you gotta tell your family what's going on. They're the reason we're out here. They're concerned about you, so get out your phone and dial your mom. And so Bryce reluctantly pulled his phone out, he dialed his mother's number and he hit call, and the officer said, give me the phone. So Bryce hands him the phone, the officer picks it up, Karen answers the phone, and the officer tells her, hey, look, I'm with your son, he's just fine, he's sober, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol, I don't really know what he's doing, but he says he's gonna go home pretty soon, but there's nothing wrong about the situation that I can tell. You need to talk to your son and figure out what's going on. And so he hands the phone over to Bryce. Bryce picks it up, and Karen says to him, what's going on? Why are you still in Button?
I have a feeling he's leading up to something big. I do. I have that feeling. What it is, I have no freaking clue. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not anxious. I'm not worried. I'm scared of where this is going. I don't want to push the space bar. I don't want to continue. I have bad feelings, MrBallen. I don't want to. No, I can't.
Willow, it's been like 9 hours, and Bryce really didn't give her an answer to any of her questions. He just kind of deflected all of them and said he'd be home soon and don't worry about it. I'm just sitting here. There's nothing to worry about. And so finally, Karen just stopped trying to pull information out of her son. She could tell that, again, he was not going to tell her what's going on. And so she changed her tactic, and she told her son very gently, Bryce, please just go get a bite to eat, get a cup of coffee, kind of get yourself together here, and then please just drive home. It's only a few hours away. Drive home, and we can talk about whatever problems you have, but you just got to drive home. You got to leave Button Willow. You got to come home. And at this, Bryce says to his mom, you know what? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll be home in a few hours. And so they hang up, and the officer, who was kind of eavesdropping intentionally on this conversation to make sure everything was fine, the officer was satisfied that everything was fine, that Bryce was sober, that he would head home. And so he says, okay, Bryce, best of luck, head home to your parents. And the officer left. An hour later, Karen received a call from Christian, the car repairman who had checked on Bryce earlier. And he was actually returning one of Karen's calls. She'd called him sometime, they didn't get back to her. And so he was calling back, and he wanted to know, had Bryce made it home safely? Because now it's been several hours from when he saw him last. And Karen would tell Christian, actually, no, after you left, my son did not leave Button Willow. He just went down the road to a parking lot, but, the police actually were just over there. They checked on him, and now I'm certain he's making his way home. Christian, who felt kind of invested in what was happening with Bryce, would say to Karen, hey, I don't mind driving over there and just confirming he has left this parking lot. But Karen would say, you know what, I'm confident he's on his way. Don't worry about it. You're too kind. So they hang up, and afterwards, Christian, even though he didn't have to, he decides, I'm going to go over there and make sure Bryce really has left, because obviously something strange is going on here, and if there is some problem, maybe I can assist. And so he drives over to this hotel parking lot, and he really was not expecting to see Bryce there. But he pulls into the lot, and who's still in the middle of the lot but Bryce in his 2003 Toyota Highlander, just staring out the front of his car. And so this time, Christian pulls up right next to him, he parks the car, he walks right up to the window, and he's a little bit more forceful, friendly, but forceful with Bryce. He has him roll the window down, and Bryce obviously is very surprised to see Christian again. It's the third time he's seen this car repairman, and Christian says to him, hey, Bryce, you need to go home. Your parents are so worried about you. You need to leave right now. In fact, I'm going to watch you leave, and then I'm going to follow you onto the highway to make sure you're going home. And so Bryce was a little bit taken aback at how forceful he was being, but he would ultimately say, okay, yeah, all right, let's leave. And so Christian gets back in his car, and he goes right behind Bryce. And after a few seconds, Bryce pulls out of the lot, and he starts driving onto the road, and Christian follows him. And for the next hour, Christian would just remain behind Bryce and watch him drive towards Laguna Niguel. And while he was driving, Christian would actually call Karen and Mike back. He would say to them that, your son had not left, but now he's good. He's on the highway. I'm right behind him. He'll be home soon. And so when Christian and Bryce made it to the last leg on the way to Laguna Niguel, Christian was confident that Bryce was fine and he would get home under his own steam. He wasn't driving erratically. Everything seemed normal. And so Christian pulled up alongside Bryce. He kind of waved to him to say, I'm leaving. And then he turned around and he headed back to Buttonwillow. Shortly after this, Karen called.
I don't know where this is going. I'm scared. I want to go home. I want to go home.
Bryce picked up the phone. He's still driving. And Karen tells him, okay, you're going to give me landmarks of the things you're seeing as you're driving so that I know you're actually driving home. But Bryce refused to give them to her. He would say, I can't see anything out my window. It's too dark and I don't know where anything is. And so despite Karen and Mike getting so frustrated with him, saying, come on, tell us something, give us a sign, a road sign, anything, tell us anything around you, Bryce didn't give them any information. And so finally, at about 2 a.m., when Bryce really should have been in Laguna Niguel or very close, he tells his parents over the phone that he's too tired to continue and he needs to pull over and take a nap. At first, his parents urged him to just keep on going. Come home. You can sleep as long as you want when you get here. But as they were saying it, they realized their son had been awake for nearly 24 hours at this point, and it's the middle of the night, so it does kind of make sense for him to pull over and take a nap. And so they say, okay, pull over, but as soon as you wake up, you need to call us so we know you're back on the road. So Bryce says, no problem, I'll do that. And they hang up. Several hours later, at 8 a.m., Karen and Mike have still not heard from their son, and they're telling themselves that he's probably just sleeping, he's totally exhausted, I'm sure he's fine, and then they hear their doorbell ring. And they're immediately so relieved because they're thinking, Bryce is here. He's finally arrived, thank goodness. They run to the door, they open it up, and it's not Bryce, it's a police officer. And the officer asks them, do you own a 2003 Toyota Highlander car? So Mike and Karen's hearts sank, and they say, yes, our son Bryce drives that car. The officer told them that the car had been located a few hours earlier at the bottom of a 25-foot cliff near Castaic Lake. Castaic Lake is about halfway between Buttonwillow and Laguna Niguel. They told the parents that there was no sign of a driver. Bryce was not there. They did find 2 small drops of blood inside the vehicle, but beyond that, there was no indication that Bryce had sustained life-threatening injuries from this crash. They said the back window of the vehicle had been broken from the inside, indicating that Bryce had escaped the wreck by punching out that window. His laptop and phone were still in the vehicle, and his wallet and duffel bag were outside the vehicle on the road and looked like they had been rummaged through before they were left there. After an examination of the damage to the car, the final tire tracks that led down to where it had been found, and traffic cameras in the area, it was concluded that Bryce had actually intentionally driven off this cliff, and he had actually hit the accelerator right before he went over the edge. After Mike and Karen headed out to the crash scene and had a chance to talk to some of the investigators that had been looking for Bryce, they informed the parents that most likely what they were looking at with this crash was a failed suicide attempt. But Mike and Karen, they just couldn't buy that. It was not like their son. And just 2 weeks earlier, when they dropped him off, he was happy, he was excited to be at school, he was talking about the future. He was not someone that was suicidal. And so what?
The man done lost his freaking mind. Just drove off a... Let's make my brain hurt. Let's make my brain hurt so bad. So bad. Oh my God, why?
Situation could he have possibly gotten himself into in just those 2 weeks that was so bad it would lead to something like this? It made investigators and the parents wonder, was Bryce hiding something? What did he mean when he said he had a lot to talk about? Did that have something to do with this thing he was hiding? A huge search was launched in and around the area where the car had been found, with hundreds of people on horseback, on ATV, on foot. There were helicopters in the air. They put divers in the lake. I mean, they looked everywhere for days and days and days, but nothing was found of Bryce. On the 9th day of the search, they brought a bloodhound out to see if it could pick up Bryce's scent, and sure enough, it did, right at the crash site. And the dog followed the scent all the way down to the lake. It walked around the lake to this bridge. It was actually a dam that went across the lake. It followed his scent right across the bridge to the other side, and then it kept on following it up this small access road until it reached a truck stop. And then his scent just stopped. And so police and the parents and everyone involved in this investigation was really surprised at this discovery. And so police got another bloodhound, a separate bloodhound. They brought it out to see if it could do the same thing, to prove that this really was his scent trail. And sure enough, the bloodhound picked up his scent. It went down to the lake, it went around to the bridge, went over, went to the truck stop, and then it just stopped. But after the scent trail was discovered, there was no other leads for anyone to follow. And so after 3 weeks of looking everywhere for Bryce, the search was called off. Some say Bryce was suicidal. That's why he drove off the cliff. That was a suicide attempt. And despite the bloodhounds picking up his scent, Bryce was most likely in the lake somewhere. Others disagree and say Bryce is still alive, that after this crash, he gets out of the car and he walks down to the lake, he walks around to that bridge, he goes up to the truck stop, and then he hitches a ride with someone and vanishes, and now he's living off the grid somewhere. And still others believe Bryce's drug and alcohol use caused a psychotic break, and that was what was causing all this strange behavior, and that was what led him to drive off the cliff. And perhaps when he landed, he sustained a vicious head wound that caused him to forget who he was, and so now he's just kind of wandering around somewhere, not knowing who he is or knowing that he's a missing person. As for his parents, they say he would never do this on purpose. He would never cause this much pain to the people that loved him, and so he must have been a victim of foul play. But regardless of what you believe happened to Bryce, something happened to him, and it's probably connected to whatever it was he said he needed to talk to his mom about. That thing that he couldn't discuss on the phone, that potentially he was trying to drive home to talk to his mom and dad in person about. But unless we find Bryce and he's still alive, it's unlikely we'll ever know what it was. Since August 30th, 2013, when Bryce went missing, no one has heard from him and no one has seen him. If you think you have information about Bryce Laspisa, please call this number now. Let them know what you know, because his parents, volunteers, the police, there's so many people still looking for him. And so any bit of information could crack this case. So please, if you have information, call this number below. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, please offer to help the like button pack up all their things so they can move, but only use weak and old tape so the bottom of the moving boxes falls out as soon as anyone tries to lift them. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 3 or 4 video uploads. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's JohnBallen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is MrBallen. I also have a second YouTube channel called MrBallen Shorts where I post random short videos and lost episodes. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called MrBallen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support. And until next time, that's going to do it. See you.
Now I'm just angry. I need to know what he was going to tell him. Get rid of all of his worldly possessions. His earrings, his Xbox. To a college student, that is his worldly possessions. Broke up with his old lady. Acted shady beyond belief. Then presumed to just drive off a cliff. Had the right mind to go through her stuff. Probably took out cash and everything else. Well, then walked to a truck stop and just vanished. My mind is going a million miles an hour. Did he see like a hit and now he's in fear for his life, so he's just off the grid. What is going on? It's like being really into a TV show, and then, you know, something really suspenseful happens for the series ending, and then they just never pick it back up again, and you're stuck for the rest of your life just wanting to know what the heck happened. That's my life now. Thank you, MrBallen, for ruining the rest of my day. Here I am for the rest of my life. I'm just going to wonder what. Okay, yeah. No sense in taking you all down the rabbit hole with me, so. Yeah. I'm sorry, I hate it when stuff happens like that. I do. It's going to be a bad day now. It was already. Alright, if you're a fan of spooky, scary, strange, or deranged, think about subscribing. If you enjoyed today's video, think about hitting that thumbs up, because it really does tend to help these days. You know, I want your thumbs. Give me your thumbs. And, as always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Stay spooky.